From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Fundamental changes going on in that part of the region if people behave correctly, if they're rational. On the other hand, we could see Israel winging it and doing a strike on its own against Iran at the nuclear targets that are pretty much dug in. They're under 75 feet of concrete, most of the enrichment facilities, and that could have unbelievable consequences.
We speak with legendary journalist Sy Hersh about his explosive article, Iran and the Bomb, How Real is the Threat? He says the U.S. might attack Iran because of distorted estimates of its nuclear and military threat, just like it did with Saddam Hussein's Iraq, then Haiti.
Haiti remains the only militarily occupied nation in the Western Hemisphere. It is suffering under the results of the earthquake, 1.3 million people still living under tents and tarps. Cholera has killed closing on 4,000 people, and no end in sight.
We speak with Kim Ives and Dan Coughlin, authors of a new report in collaboration with WikiLeaks called the Petro-Carib Files. Newly released documents expose how the U.S., with pressure from Exxon and Chevron, tried to interfere with and block an oil agreement between Haiti and Venezuela that would save Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, $100 million per year. Then former Los Angeles Black Panther leader Geronimo Gijaga Pratt dies in Tanzania. The target of COINTELPRO, he was imprisoned for 27 years before a judge vacated his wrongful murder conviction.
Charged because of a conspiracy by the government that was led by the Hoover, what we call the Hoover-Nixon regime, which was an illegal conspiracy directed against the entire left, entire movement.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. NATO continues to bomb the Libyan capital of Tripoli in the international campaign against Muammar Gaddafi. A Libyan official says NATO carried out at least 10 attacks earlier today. The strikes come hours after NATO extended its mandate to bomb Libya for another 90 days. In other Libya news, an alleged victim of rape by Gaddafi's forces has been deported from Qatar to the rebel-held east of Libya. The woman, Iman al-Obeidi, was detained in March after bursting into a hotel full of reporters in Tripoli and recounting her ordeal. She fled to Qatar shortly after being released. A friend of Obeidi says she didn't want to return to Libya and now fears violence for criticizing Libyan rebels. Violence continues to engulf the Yemeni capital of Sana'a in the ongoing standoff over President Ali Abdullah Saleh's refusal to step down. Yemeni forces reportedly fired on crowds of protesters today, following an earlier round of shootings on Thursday. Street battles, meanwhile, are continuing between Saleh's forces and anti-government tribal groups. At least 135 people have been killed in Sana'a in the past 10 days. Syrian forces are being accused of killing more civilians in the ongoing crackdown on protests challenging President Bashar al-Assad. The head of the Syrian Organization for Human Rights, Ammar Korabi, says at least 13 civilians were killed in the town of Rastan this week, while another 10 were killed in the town of Hirak.
We have names from Al-Hirak, 10 people who killed by the fire, and 4 of them as doctors who take the treatment and give the treatment about the injured people in the street. But unfortunately, they receive the fire from the assassination in the roof of the building surround these places.
The latest violence comes as exiled Syrian opposition groups have called on Assad to immediately step down. Meeting in Turkey, nearly 300 delegates issued a declaration demanding Assad's departure.
We are offering President Bashar al-Assad to resign immediately and transfer the authorities to his deputies so that the Syrian people within a year's time can prepare themselves for a democratic process. If not, we are pressing in supporting the revolution in Syria in order to force him to leave Syria for Syrians.
The World Health Organization is warning that a strain of E. coli that's killed 17 people and sickened nearly 2,000 more in Europe may be the deadliest ever seen. The bacterium's believed to be a mutant combination of two different strains. According to the Washington Post, the bacterium that has caused the deaths would be legal in the United States if discovered on meat or poultry because of a regulatory oversight. That means there would be no way to prevent an outbreak were the strain to contaminate fruits or vegetables. The Obama administration says it's launched an investigation following news of a cyber attack against Google users originating in China. Google says hackers in China tried to break into the Gmail accounts of hundreds of people, including senior U.S. government officials. White House Press Secretary Jay Carney said the FBI is examining the case.
Got the lead in this as an investigation. I'm not going to confirm anything about origins, except to say that we're aware of the reports and are obviously concerned about cybersecurity and have taken action accordingly.
The probe follows recent news the Pentagon has determined cyber attacks generated abroad may now constitute an act of war. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Pentagon's first-ever cyber strategy says attempts to sabotage the nation's electricity grid, subways or pipelines could be met with military force. The decision is expected to stir debate about whether the U.S. can ever be certain about the origin of a cyber attack and when the severity of attack constitutes an act of war. A high-level international panel has concluded the so-called war on drugs has failed and that governments should consider legalizing substances, including marijuana. The Global Commission on Drug Policy is comprised of 19 members, including several former heads of state. Former Colombian President Cesar Gaviria urged the U.S. to begin debate on legalization.
We want the U.S. society to make a debate on this matter that has not been done because political leaders are a little fearful of the association between crime and narco-trafficking, and it's very difficult to distinguish from consumers to users. But this society needs a debate. This society is spending $40 billion a year in fighting drugs. That is a lot of money. Has more than 500,000 people in jail. But they are spending that money in a way that is not effective.
Former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney has entered the race for the 2012 Republican presidential nomination. Romney announced his candidacy in New Hampshire.
Barack Obama has failed America. When he took office, the economy was in recession, and he made it worse. It breaks my heart to see what's happening to this great country. These failing hopes make up President Obama's own misery index.
Several civil rights groups have filed a class-action lawsuit seeking to block a recent Georgia law modeled on the anti-immigrant measure in Arizona. The law empowers local and state police to demand documentation of residency and to detain people they suspect are in the country without permission. State residents, including U.S. citizens, are required to carry documentation with them at all times. The suit was brought by a coalition including the American Civil Liberties Union and the Southern Poverty Law Center. And the former Black Panther Geronimo Jijaga Pratt has died at the age of 63. In 1972, Jijaga was wrongfully convicted of the murder of Caroline Olsen. He spent 27 years in prison, 8 of those in solitary confinement. He was released in 1997 after a judge vacated his conviction. We'll have more on Geronimo Pratt later in the broadcast. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.